When we say I love you, what we often mean is, I love you the way I understand love, and that distinction changes everything. Most of us enter relationships carrying a deeply ingrained blueprint of what love looks like. It was shaped by our families, our culture, our first heartbreaks, our earliest attachments. Maybe love meant acts of service, someone fixing things, providing, solving. Maybe it meant constant verbal reassurance. Maybe it meant physical closeness. Maybe it meant loyalty expressed through sacrifice. Whatever it was, we internalized it as truth. So when we fall in love, we offer what feels authentic to us. We give affection in the language we speak fluently. We assume that because it feels meaningful to us, it will feel meaningful to them. But love is not projection. It is perception. And this is where many relationships begin to fracture quietly. I often hear partners say, "But I do so much for you." And the other responds, "I know, but I still don't feel loved." Both are telling the truth. The tragedy is not lack of love, it is misalignment. We tend to love the way we prefer, not the way our partner needs. And when our effort is not received the way we expected, we feel unappreciated. We think, they don't see what I'm giving. Meanwhile, they are thinking, they don't see what I need. It becomes a cycle of invisible generosity. Loving someone well requires curiosity. It requires asking a deceptively simple question. What makes you feel valued? Not what should make you feel valued. Not what makes me feel valued, but you. This demands humility, because sometimes the answer challenges our ego. Imagine someone who expresses love through problem solving. They fix your issues, they give advice, they take control in moments of stress. To them, this is devotion, but their partner may not want solutions. They may want empathy, they may want to be heard, not managed. The first partner thinks they are loving deeply, the second feels unseen, or considers someone who grew up equating love with constant communication. They send messages throughout the day, check in frequently, want long conversations every evening. To them, presence equals care. But their partner may experience that frequency as pressure. They may feel loved through trust and autonomy. One feels connected through closeness, the other feels connected through space. Neither is wrong, but without awareness, both feel disappointed. To love is to study your partner, not in a controlling way, not in a strategic way, but in a genuinely curious way. What soothes them? What excites them? What makes them withdraw? What restores them? What wounds them most quickly? We often assume love should be instinctive, that if it requires effort, something is wrong. But love is not mind reading, it is interpretation. It is noticing that your partner lights up when you acknowledge their effort. It is recognizing that they soften when you offer reassurance without being asked. It is understanding that their silence might signal overwhelm, not indifference. Projection says, "This is how I would want to be treated." Perception says, "This is who you are. Let me meet you there." Projection is easier. It keeps us centered in our own experience. Perception requires decentering, shifting the focus outward, and that shift can feel destabilizing. Because loving someone the way they need may stretch you beyond your natural tendencies. If you are not verbally expressive, you may need to learn language. If you are not physically affectionate, you may need to initiate touch. If you value independence, you may need to offer reassurance more frequently than feels necessary to you. This is not about abandoning yourself. It is about expanding yourself. Healthy love does not demand self-erasure. It invites flexibility. There is also a deeper philosophical layer here. When we love only through our own preferences, we are loving an extension of ourselves. We are offering what confirms our identity. But when we love according to our partner's needs, we acknowledge their separateness. We honor their interior world. And that is intimacy, not sameness, but recognition. Recognition says, "I see that your emotional landscape is different from mine, and I care enough to learn its terrain." That learning is ongoing. Needs evolve. Stress reshapes people. Life transitions alter what feels supportive. The way your partner needed love 5 years ago may not be the way they need it now, which means love must stay attentive. It must remain observant. It must remain willing to ask again. So before you conclude that your partner is ungrateful or too demanding or emotionally distant, pause and ask yourself, am I loving them, or am I loving my idea of how love should look? Because love is not proven by how much you give. It is proven by how deeply the other person feels received. And the most powerful shift you can make in any relationship is this. Stop asking, am I loving enough? And start asking, am I loving in a way that can actually be felt? One of the most delicate tensions in love is the gap between intention and impact. Most partners do not wake up thinking, how can I neglect the person I love today? They wake up believing they are trying. They believe their effort should count. And yet, relationships unravel not because of bad intentions, but because of repeated negative impact. You may intend to be supportive, but if your support feels dismissive, the impact is disconnection. You may intend to provide stability, but if your stability feels emotionally distant, the impact is loneliness. You may intend to show love through hard work and sacrifice, but if your partner experiences that as absence, the impact is abandonment. And here is the difficult truth. In relationships, impact carries more weight than intention. This is where defensiveness quietly destroys intimacy. When someone says, I don't feel loved, the reflexive response is often, but I do so much for you. That sentence may be factually accurate, it may even be sincere, but it centers your effort rather than their experience. And love that cannot tolerate feedback cannot deepen. To love your partner the way they need requires emotional maturity, the capacity to hear how your behavior lands without collapsing into shame or escalating into blame. This does not mean you are responsible for every feeling your partner has. It means you are curious about how your presence affects them. Impact invites reflection. Intention alone invites self-justification. Consider how often couples argue about tone rather than content. One partner says, I was just being honest. The other says, it felt harsh. The first defends honesty. The second defends sensitivity. But what is really being negotiated is impact. You can be honest and still wound. You can be practical and still invalidate. You can be calm and still feel cold. The question is not whether your intention was pure. The question is whether your partner feels safe, seen, and valued in the exchange. When someone tells you that your actions hurt them, they are not necessarily accusing you of malice. They are offering data. They are saying, this is how it feels on my side. And that information is invaluable if you can receive it. Many people struggle here because they equate impact with accusation. If my impact was negative, then I must be a bad partner. But that binary thinking shuts down growth. Relationships are dynamic systems. You will misstep, you will misunderstand, you will act from stress rather than clarity. What defines the health of the relationship is not the absence of misalignment, but the willingness to repair. Repair begins when you can say, that wasn't my intention, but I see how it affected you. That sentence alone can transform conflict. It validates experience without denying self. It shifts the conversation from proving innocence to restoring connection. When you prioritize impact, you become more attentive. You notice patterns. You observe when your partner withdraws after certain comments. You see when they brighten after specific affirmations. You learn their triggers and their relief points. You begin to recognize that love is not static behavior, it is adaptive behavior. This also means letting go of the belief that effort automatically equals effectiveness. You may be trying very hard in a way that simply does not translate. Imagine speaking loudly in a language your partner does not understand. The volume of your effort does not increase comprehension, only translation does. This is why curiosity must replace certainty. Instead of saying, you should appreciate what I do, ask, what would make you feel more supported? Instead of defending your behavior immediately, pause and inquire, can you tell me more about what felt painful? This does not make you weak. It makes you relationally intelligent. And here is something subtle but powerful. When partners feel that their emotional experience matters, they become less reactive. Validation regulates the nervous system. Being heard reduces escalation. When you respond to impact rather than arguing about intention, you build trust. Trust grows not from perfection, but from responsiveness. Of course, this is reciprocal. Both partners must be willing to communicate their experience clearly and take responsibility for their interpretations. But someone has to initiate maturity. Someone has to choose reflection over reaction. Often that choice becomes contagious. The deeper philosophical layer here is this: love is not about who you believe yourself to be. It is about who your partner experiences you as. You may see yourself as loyal, attentive, generous, but if your partner experiences you as distracted, critical, or unavailable, their experience shapes the relationship more than your self-image does. This is not about self-sacrifice. It is about alignment between what you mean to convey and what is actually received. When intention and impact begin to match, something stabilizes. The relationship feels coherent. Effort translates into connection. Words land softly instead of sharply. Gestures feel nourishing instead of confusing. So the next time you find yourself saying, "That's not what I meant," pause. Meaning matters. But so does effect, and love matures the moment you care as much about how your actions are felt as you do about how they were intended. If love were a static discovery, relationships would be simple. You would learn your partner's needs once, memorize them, and repeat the formula forever. But love is not a fixed language. It is a living translation. The way your partner needed love at 25 may not be the way they need it at 35. The way they need love during a season of confidence is different from how they need it during a season of insecurity. Stress reshapes people. Parenthood reshapes people. Career shifts, illness, grief, success, all of it reshapes emotional needs. And yet many couples operate on outdated data. They say, "But you used to like this," or "This is how we've always done it." What they are really saying is, "I learned you once. Why are you changing?" Because growth changes us. To love someone the way they need requires ongoing attention. It requires the humility to accept that you do not permanently graduate from learning your partner. You stay a student. Think about how often we update our phones, our software, our strategies at work. We understand that systems evolve. But in relationships, we assume stability means sameness. Stability is not sameness. Stability is adaptability. A partner who once needed constant reassurance may, after years of security, crave more independence. A partner who once valued space may, after a period of loss, need greater closeness. Emotional needs are not personality traits carved in stone. They are responses to life. When you treat love as a one-time discovery, you risk loving a past version of your partner, and that creates loneliness inside the relationship. Ongoing translation begins with conversation, not interrogation, but gentle curiosity. What feels supportive to you these days? Is there something you've been needing that we haven't talked about? What makes you feel most connected lately? These questions signal attentiveness. They say, "I know you are evolving, and I want to evolve with you." This also requires listening without immediately filtering through your own preferences. When your partner says, "I need more quality time," the instinct might be to defend your schedule. When they say, "I need more affection," you may feel criticized. But if you can pause and hear the longing underneath, something softens. Needs are rarely accusations, they are invitations. There is also courage required in expressing your own evolving needs. Loving your partner the way they need does not mean silencing yourself. It means creating a dynamic where both of you can update each other honestly. Translation goes both ways. If you have grown more ambitious, you may need encouragement instead of caution. If you are feeling overwhelmed, you may need gentleness instead of efficiency. If you are healing from something unspoken, you may need patience instead of performance. But here is the nuance. Translation requires precision. General statements like, "I just need more love," create confusion. Specific language creates clarity. When you check in during the day, I feel remembered. When you sit with me without trying to fix it, I feel understood. Specificity reduces guesswork. The more precise you are about your needs, the easier it is for your partner to meet them. And the more precise you are in asking about theirs, the more accurately you can respond. Over time, this practice builds a relationship that feels alive. You are not repeating scripts. You are co-authoring chapters. There will be misinterpretations. There will be moments when you think you understand and then realize you don't. But that is not failure. It is part of the translation process. What matters is the willingness to keep revising. Many relationships stagnate not because love disappears, but because curiosity does. Partners assume they know each other fully. They stop asking questions. They stop noticing shifts. They begin to relate to memory instead of reality. To love dynamically is to resist that drift. It is to say, Who are you becoming? Not just who have you been? And that question contains respect. It acknowledges your partner as a growing individual, not a fixed role. In this way, love becomes less about obligation and more about discovery. You are not trapped in a static exchange, you are engaged in a living dialogue. And dialogue keeps intimacy vibrant. So as you move forward in your relationship, remember, loving your partner the way they need is not a destination. It is an ongoing practice of observation, conversation, and adjustment. Do not assume yesterday's understanding is enough for tomorrow's connection. Stay curious, stay responsive, stay willing to ask again. There is a moment in many relationships when love collides with ego. It often sounds like this: I am doing my best. Why isn't that enough? And beneath that sentence is something tender, a desire to be seen as good, as loving, as adequate. None of us wants to feel that we are failing the person we care about. So when a partner says, I don't feel loved, or I need something different, it can feel like an indictment of our character. But here is the quiet truth. Loving someone the way they need will, at some point, confront your ego. Because ego wants validation. Ego wants to be right. Ego wants its effort recognized. Love, however, asks for flexibility. In conflict, especially around emotional needs, the instinct is defensiveness. That's just how I am. You're too sensitive. No one else has ever complained. These responses protect identity, but they block intimacy. When your partner expresses unmet needs, they are not necessarily criticizing who you are. They are revealing where the relationship feels thin. And to respond with humility rather than pride is an act of strength. Letting go of ego does not mean surrendering your boundaries or accepting unreasonable demands. It means releasing the need to win the argument in order to preserve the bond. There is a difference between being right and being connected. Many couples become trapped in proving their perspective. Each partner gathers evidence. I said this. You did that. Last week The focus shifts from understanding to scoring. And the more each person defends their position, the less either feels heard. But when you step back and ask, what is my partner actually needing right now? The tone changes. Sometimes what they need is reassurance, not logic. Sometimes they need empathy, not correction. Sometimes they need you to acknowledge pain, even if you disagree with the interpretation. Ego resists this because it fears losing ground. It equates concession with weakness. But in relationships, humility is not defeat. It is investment. Consider how often we confuse authenticity with rigidity. This is just my personality. I'm not affectionate. I don't like talking about feelings. These statements may be accurate descriptions of your tendencies, but they are not fixed laws. When you love someone, growth becomes part of the contract. If your partner needs verbal affirmation and it does not come naturally to you, you have a choice. You can insist that they accept you as you are, or you can stretch, not because you are wrong, but because you value the connection. Stretching is uncomfortable. It exposes insecurity. It may require you to practice behaviors that feel unfamiliar, but growth in relationships is rarely comfortable. Ego prefers comfort. Love prefers evolution. There is also something deeper at play. Control. When you insist on loving only in ways that suit you, you maintain control of the emotional terrain. You decide the rules. You define what counts as love. But when you allow your partner's needs to influence your behavior, you relinquish some control. You allow their reality to shape the relationship. That can feel destabilizing, especially if you equate control with safety. Yet real safety in relationships comes from adaptability, from knowing that if you are hurting, your partner will adjust rather than defend, from knowing that your vulnerability will be met with openness, not resistance. Letting go of ego also means accepting that you will not always feel appreciated in the moment of adjustment. Sometimes you will change a behavior and your partner may not immediately notice. Sometimes you will apologize and still feel misunderstood. Growth is not always instantly rewarded, but over time, humility compounds. Small adjustments build trust. Willingness builds security. The relationship becomes a space where needs can be expressed without triggering combat. This does not mean you abandon yourself. It means you balance self-respect with responsiveness. You can say, I hear what you need, and I will try, without erasing your own identity. In fact, when ego softens, identity strengthens. You become someone capable of change, someone who chooses connection over pride. And that choice is powerful, because love that is rigid becomes brittle. Love that is flexible becomes resilient. When conflict arises, and it will, pause before defending. Ask yourself, am I protecting my ego or am I protecting the relationship? Sometimes the bravest sentence you can say is, help me understand how to love you better. That sentence does not diminish you, it deepens you. And in the long run, the partners who thrive are not the ones who were always right. They are the ones who were willing to grow, even when it challenged their pride. Because the strongest relationships are not built on perfect compatibility. They are built on two people who never stop learning how to love each other well.